And the truth is there's a population density problem, meaning that too many people live in too small of an area or acreage on the planet, which leads to destruction of the environment in that spot and millions of people dependent on a system to feed them, which they themselves do not produce or help with.
Internet troubles on backup on the phone mic here. Trying to get Ransom chimed in with a call. That's the thing. Our comms seem to have some difficulties as of late. Have you noticed that? Has anybody else been having some problems with their communication, the internet, these sort of things? To start off tonight, I do want to say something about canning. You know, we're coming into the season right now for canning, tomatoes and vegetables, etc. But this is a warning to everybody out there. Currently in the United States, they're distributing and selling 4% vinegar acidity. Now, you need 5% acidity to be able to do your water baths and your pickling and that sort of thing. You need at least 5%. So that's the minimum. If you go below that, you're at the chance of botulism. It won't save the food properly. There could be bacteria and these sort of things that get in the food to make you sick. Now, what are the chances that we're coming into an area right now where people are understanding and we need to get canning and gardening and off the system immediately? And right now, they're rolling out a 4% vinegar, which is substandard for even saving your own food that you grew in your garden. Insidious at best. So, Ransom, I appreciate you joining me tonight.
You know, how many people probably just went and got that and didn't pay attention to it and have already done the work to use it? That's kind of scary, huh? And then if they find out, they just see, if they come across this, they'll be like, oh man, you're going to have to eat all of that stuff now because it's not safe to eat. Why would they even do that? That seems like a direct on purpose kind of attack to see who's paying attention out there. It doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't make sense for the company even to be selling that.
Well, it does if it's deliberate and you're trying to do exactly what you said, ruin people's stored foods. Now, who are you going to go for first? Are you going to go for a regular mom that drives a soccer van and still taking her kids triple vaxxed everywhere? Or are you going to try to sneak that in to people who are just beginning canning for this year, those that are between the systems right now but don't have any stored vinegar? That is actually destroying food, like you said. And imagine the amount of time and energy you'd already put into the canning process. Like that takes an enormous amount of time. And you used your food. So the food can't be recycled. You just can't scrape that off and start over. You need to ditch all of it. And then what happens if they only sell 4% from now? What if that becomes the norm and they stop selling 5% acidity vinegars? In the new world we're moving into with the social credit scores and stops you from ever saving food either. I had a revelation the other day talking about heirloom and hybrid seeds. Just that very process and that very thought process that, God gave us these seeds that if you save them, you can continually resprout them or regrow them year after year after year. And what do we get into with commercial farmers? Well, they have to buy the GMO hybrid seeds, Roundup Ready activated. So that's a purchase every year. They can't save their seeds. There's been so many lawsuits. Like they quit saving seed about 25 years ago. But you and me, we got to buy those seeds. That's why they're in the little packets there, hybrid seeds that you can get yourself. You can't regrow those. So even that gift from our Creator was taken away from us and now is a paid thing. They're starting to strip it away. So those of you out there, please prepare.
I'm just waiting for them to start taking things off the shelf everywhere because, when I surf through these headlines and I look at all the companies, especially the ones that deal with the general population like Walmart, Target, etc., Tractor Supply, all of these, most of their stuff that I've been buying, they do still have at least an option to get things. But what's so bizarre about it is, like I've got a bunch of solar lights and different stuff, and they last about a year. So it's like that disposable product line of everything that they want you to continually have to go back on purpose so that you can't just get tools, stack them back, and have a good collection of utensils to farm with, to fix your stuff with. We talk a lot about the seeds and everything, and, tools got to be number two. I mean, if you don't have tools to do anything, you can't do anything. You just can't. Having a basic set of wrenches, screwdrivers, etc., pliers, wire cutters, wire strippers, just the whole line of tools helps you navigate the whole world. And it's so bizarre that I meet so many people. Some guy came over to our driveway the other day trying to solicit some mechanical work, and we had to tell him to leave, but it was pretty bizarre to me because he had no tools. And evidently that's a new thing, is mechanics without tools. And when I was younger, there was no such thing as a mechanic without tools. Not even a shade tree mechanic didn't have tools. He didn't have a shop. He didn't have a building, but he had a whole set of tools. So you can't work without tools. And the same thing's true for every industry, farming, fixing electronics. If you don't have the right stuff, you just don't do anything. It stops production. And it seems like that's the whole marketing plan for everything now. Seeds that don't reproduce themselves, tools, items that break, even the auto manufacturing, makes parts that you cannot fix. You can't take it apart and do things. And then the other trick that they've been using is about every 3 or 4 years, they change the standard for everything so that something breaks in your home or your property and you go back, you have to buy a whole new thing and redo it. You have to re-engineer it so it'll fit the new products. So one of the things that I've been doing over the last couple of years is, the redundancy thing where I buy several of the items when I find it that go to the things that I own. I own several cars that are the same make and model, just so that if all else fails, I could build a car out of, both of them or all three of them. I could make it work. And having a little set of tools, it blows my mind when I realize people are, stranded on the side of the road and things like that. And they have no clue what to do. Their radiators broke, their water pump broke, their power steering, et cetera, et cetera. And most of it can just be solved with, a little ingenuity to make it enough for a minute, and then knowing how to replace a part like Legos, because it's really that simple. Now they got everything where they're trying to turn it into items and products that you almost need an engineering degree to understand and work on. Like, think about some of the new auto cars and things like that. There's a lot of brilliant kids and brilliant people out there that know how to keep up with that. But those are not the same, in general, the same people that are doing the hands-on mechanical work of the actual nuts and bolts and things. They know how to code, as they say. But they're trying to change everything over to a disposable lifestyle. And the only problem with that is that we too are a product, and I feel like now is the time that they've decided to figure out what the numbers game is and what percent of who and where disappears off the face of the earth, because we're at a technological point where they're going to start engineering everything from food to the human being that eats it.
I can dovetail into that point. Mechanical work, I'm starting to learn it. I never knew it. So I was one of those, learn to code guys. I never knew it. But I've had breakdowns out here. We got, different mowers for the different parts of the fields. And then I have a 44-inch Swisher bush hog attachment, which I pull to be able to get to the backfield and kind of up some hills and, go some places that you don't want to take other kind of, riding mowers, because it'll just tear them up transmission-wise. Taking the motor apart, luckily I have a neighbor who used to work on cars and understands all of this. Super nice guy, teaches me everything. I just need to buy the part and then we repair it. So like in the Swisher mower, the coils went out, so I had to go buy that. Nothing fit, so I had to get an AutoZone, and then, no, I'm not really promoting them, but that's where all they really have is like one of those auto parts. And then if you drive down the highway in a 25, 30 minutes, you can find a second one. I forget the name of it, but there's really only two of them that have all the parts. I ended up couldn't find those. The fuses, the parts, the grounding cables, etc. were similar. So I had to end up ordering the stuff on Amazon because I couldn't find it locally. What else did we end up replacing? Oh, the voltage regulator. Yeah, nobody had one of those. That was, you got to get it online.
And there's different type of voltage regulators too, because then our 0 point went out. And it lost the voltage regulator at the same time. And also the fuel pump stopped working on that. So I had to buy a bunch of fuel hose, fuel filters. By the way, if you don't have any fuel filters for any kind of farm machinery, you definitely want to get a handful or more. Now, you can backfill it and put carburetor fluid in there and shake it out and get most of the dirt out, but you're going to want a new one if you could. So just in this last 3 weeks, all of our equipment is broken down. Luckily, I still have a push mower. Remember, as a kid, those of you old enough, when you had to actually work to get an allowance, I used to have to mow our yard to get the allowance money for the week on a Saturday. Usually I'd mow it. So I was pretty handy pushing a push mower around. Now, luckily, we have that. It's still functional. But you try to do 2.5 acres in a front orchard, an acre on the back just behind the deck here, and then 5 acres out where the bees are. No way. No way. You know, that requires riding mower kind of stuff. Another thing I could bump up and say, skills on repairing simple machinery. Because, Ransom, what you referenced there, this electronic thing and everything computerized, etc., you either have the part or you don't. Because that happened with my GE washer. This is like, it was right in the middle of COVID, probably like the middle of 2021, a year and a half ago, a little longer. The computer board or whatever went out, and we ordered one of those, and they're like 8-month lead time for a repair part. 8 months. It wasn't like taking a gear apart and putting it back together with a couple of new bolts and, slamming some oil on that thing. It had a full computer board in it that was unavailable. And you know what? I ended up giving it away because after like the 6th or 7th month arrived, they're like, oh no, we can't get it for you. And that's from General Electric. On one of their own machines, couldn't get a repair part for their own washer. And I was just astounded by that. That really blew my mind open that the actual producer of the washer couldn't get its own repair part because of the shutdowns in China. That really sent it home to me like we are really dependent on a lot of outside systems. So this is another one here. Ransom hit it with tools. You got to have tools. Handles. You need to have a lot of handles too, because we are breaking farm tools all the time. The rakes and the hose and that sort of thing, always breaking. Always. So you're either going to shorten your handle, or you're going to learn how to like carve a new one, or you're going to go find where somebody at a weekend market sells the handles, and you're going to buy them for $5, $8. I don't know, the price keeps going up. When I first started buying those handles, they were, $3.50, $4 from the guy who makes them. They're all hickory. And, now they're $7. But I don't complain because they're hickory handles. This is just for growing food. If you don't have the tools, you can reach back to the Holodomor, if anybody's familiar with that chapter of history where Stalin cordoned off all of the grain farms and let everybody starve to death. And what did they do? They took their farm machinery and every implement that they possibly had and burned all their homes on the way out. So they had no farm machinery and no houses to live in. Now that is your friend Stalin over there in the area now known as Soviet Ukraine. Ukraine and Moldova. Like, those are the actual proper names for it. And I might add one thing because I had it highlighted in blue when I was trying to string these ideas together here. During the famine, there was a decree about the protection of socialist property. So see how this is going to, copy paste over to the modern era here. Again, quote, decree about the protection of socialist property. And what it was, a law to protect the collective farms. And it allowed people to be prosecuted for gleaning or picking up leftover grain that was in the fields. Now, normally birds do that. Deer do that. Squirrels and chipmunks and your amazing amount of life that lives around you does that. Well, if you were to do that as a person, and it says they arrested 200,000 people sentenced to work labor camps for picking up the grain left over in the fields. Now, if it does move to this sort of thing, you're definitely going to want to have some tools to grow. Are you going to be sneaky gardener? I don't know. Ransom, there's just too much matching up in history for me to think. And you got to be able to repair stuff, and you got to be able to have tools to do that. Would you buy extra? Because I'm having trouble too with one thing, anybody out there. The metric set for sockets and the English set for sockets. You got to have both. Because you're going to get mixed up and you're leaving things everywhere. You got to actually probably get 2 sets or something, one for the garage and one for somewhere else. tell me about your tools. Like, you don't have to spill too much, but what do you think some essential tools would be for anybody out there?
Video.
Well, you got to have at least a metric set to work on almost anything that comes from other than the United States. And then, of course, you got to have a standard set of that. A good thing to have is carpentry tools, and that includes ratchets. A lot of people don't know they have ratchets, so you don't have to use wrenches. But basically, they're ratchet wrenches that are for carpentry. So you would have a carpentry set, and you'd have a set for whatever specifically car you use. Like, you should have enough tools in a little bag that you could basically tear apart a car, because that's what I have in mine. I bring a metric set, each size of the ratchets and sockets, so that I can do just about anything. It's a good idea to have something, either a backup air compressor or, now they have the little battery so you can take off the bigger stuff, but they don't really work as good as pneumatic tools. If you're really going to be serious about fixing things or doing things at anything larger than, just working on your car or your lawnmower, you need a whole set of pneumatic tools as well, including everything to tear apart machinery so you can fix it. It's hard to do anything without an anvil or a vise, a good sized vise. I mean, those two things by itself, you're going to need to do any kind of metal fabrication. Having a welding set, either a MIG set or TIG, or if you're really good, some acetylene torch welding, all of that stuff is just stuff that everyday Americans on the farm have been using forever. Times are changing, so you should have also an electronic set. We have a toolbox that just for tearing apart electronics, computers, tablets, phones, etc., and figuring out what goes in that. I've always been about tearing stuff apart since I was a little kid to find out how it works, and then also being able to fix it. Brought up that GE, your dryer there, which is ironic. I have a GE stove out on my porch right now that I'm probably going to give away for free, because the motherboard from, the early 80s or whatever is broken, and you can't really get a new one. There's some aftermarket companies that make the switchboard or whatever it is there to make it work again, and they're very expensive. So it's like, you don't want to put a $300 saddle on a $50 horse. My girlfriend's parents were nice enough to replace the stove, and they bought us a stove, and it's one of those, ironically, it's a smart stove. So the refrigerator's now smart. The stove is smart. The microwave's smart. The television listens to you. They all work together in an app. And you know what? Someone somewhere else can turn off all of your appliances in your house till nothing works. And then you don't have those tools. So in my opinion, if you can find older, regular analog appliances, stoves, refrigerators, etc., because I have an old refrigerator in our extra room that works better than the new thing does. It works way better. These supposedly energy efficient smart appliances raised my electricity probably about $250. And the idea is, and they're selling it, is go green and you'll save money. But actually all their new stuff cost more money to run if you're actually using it. You know, like these induction and convection stovetops and stuff, they're burning the juice. So it's really a good idea to have a backup set of appliances that have nothing to do with the smart grid or any of that other stuff, because just reading the paperwork that comes with it, they're all spying on you. The refrigerator can literally, you know, find out what you bought at the store and wirelessly connect back to the internet without your permission and tell them what you're buying so that they can have data on the products that you get that you put in your refrigerator. Then the stove's connected to the refrigerator. It's like they know how many calories you eat at your house. Can you imagine the ramifications when we go over to this ESG or social credit score system when the companies are turning off your appliances or using your appliances too much and eating too much or eating meat, or, you know, think about the ramifications of having all your appliances wired together, sending data back on your day-to-day daily life. It's a bizarre, scary world we're going in, and they're trying to convince people simultaneously that the economy is good, that people are working everywhere, and that robots are not taking your jobs. And then also, on the other hand, bragging that indeed companies are laying off massive amounts of people. The jobs that are available are part-time, not full-time, and they don't have to pay insurance or dental plans or none of that stuff when you're just a part-time employee. And then even the ones that call it full-time reduce the hours below a 40-hour a week, so you don't actually qualify for being a full-time employee. And then you have these companies like right here is an article talking about they just want to get rid of the employees because they're not as good as the robots. So here it is. CEO fires 90% of support staff, saying AI outperforms them. He's getting absolutely roasted by people online. However, that right next to this other article that says robots themselves say they won't steal your jobs or rebel against humans. And then you go on and you think about this whole scenario of the changeover, the Great Reset, and you realize a certain small group of people in each of the regimes around the world are going to move to the next level of technology and leave the common man behind to not be able to grow food because they're not allowed to own land. They're not allowed to do this or that to protect the environment. And we'll be essentially on a digital soup kitchen. And your whole lifestyle of all of these screens, and it makes sense, too, that if you go to the average home in America, every single person there is staring at a screen, whether it's a phone, a tablet, or a television, or a computer screen. And I myself are guilty part of the time, but I go out of my way to go outside and mess with my plants. You know, it's been triple digits for us, so I have to constantly watch them to see if they're kind of slumping and drying out and keep them hydrated, just like me. Soon you won't be able to do that because you'll be too busy trying to make ends meet when they're telling you that there is no, there's no recession and there's no inflation. It's all in your head. Don't trust your lying eyes. And the truth is there's a population density problem, meaning that too many people live in too small of an area or acreage on the planet, which leads to destruction of the environment in that spot and millions of people dependent on a system to feed them, which they themselves do not produce or help with. You know, here's a cool article, just kind of put that in the frame. Proof humans reshape the world. And it's a whole article about the last 500,000 years of human beings morphing the bird that they found in the jungle that now became the chicken, and how even in the last 50 years, we've radically changed it to the point where you can see evolution in just several decades. And this is just from our appetite as a human being. And if humans, turn this little bird for a long time into a food source, meat and eggs, and then in the last 50 years to make rotisserie chickens, we further evolved the bird. And they're saying that, later, I guess when civilization collapses, we can go back into the fossil record and see exactly when humans emerged and disappeared based on the chickens. Isn't that fascinating?
I got the breading right now and the oil's heating up. Let's do it, man. Get the chicken in the deep fryer. Are you kidding me? Don't leave that valuable resource to go to waste. We need chickens. We love chickens. I love the Easter egg color of chickens, the olive eggs or the green eggs, the blue eggs. Not all chickens lay white or brown eggs. There's a myriad of color of eggs as well. So you have to wonder, they talk about one evolution or one, visible evolution within a 50, 70-year period. Well, magnetic field changes and evolutionary leaps also. Magnetic field disturbances allow things to morph faster. They find species that pop out of nowhere, but those popping out of nowhere seem to coincide with Earth's magnetic reversals. Who was that? Robert Felix wrote that book, Evolutionary Leaps and Magnetic Reversals. And he just simply matched two data sets. Magnetic reversal on our planet, north-south, south turns to north, north turns to south. And he was only doing 100%, not what we have now with the polar wander where it's moving, from the North Pole way over Russia down toward Japan. And the South Pole is screaming up toward Indonesia. It's out off the actual landmass now. It's not even at the South Pole over Antarctica, the continent. It's out in the ocean now. See, this is how much our magnetic poles are wandering. Very different than a complete magnetic polar reversal. When there's a complete pole reversal, new species just jump out of nowhere.
The Robert Felix stuff is right on the money, and we're kind of in that spot right now. We may be transitioning over to a new species that is of the designed kind. Despite the magnetic field influence or whatever caused it last time, I think this one is being hijacked by the designing of human beings, and that's what's going on right now. That's why we live in an era where they're telling you that they're going to open up baby factories, that you could just grow your baby in a little tube down there, don't worry. But this time we have the influence of technological forces that are changing everything. And this is exactly like what he was talking about, this circumstance that we're going into right now with a collapsed magnetic field and then increased cosmic rays penetrating what protection we have hitting the Earth.
He was talking about the new model of things of the Earth. And I'm not talking about the Earth physically, but the new model of governance structure on the planet. And one thing myself I've noticed is everything's gone to the subscription model, where whatever you want to click to, whether it's Photoshop or Camtasia or Microsoft something or Office or Windows, whatever, it's always on a subscription model. Now, the things that you might use like Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator, these kind of things, they're on a subscription model too. So if you don't pay, like day one after you don't pay, all of your work is gone. If you decide to store it on their cloud storage inside their server versus pulling it down on your own device and going the extra mile and plugging a hard drive in and then saving it there. See, I wanted to get Photoshop. I had it before on my other computer, and then since I moved computers, I didn't have it. And I was trying to find it in the U.S., looking for it everywhere. I want to buy it just as a standalone. I want to download it to my computer. I want to go find it myself, and I just want to buy it one time and bring it. I could not find anything in a U.S. server coming in from like .com that redirected me to buy it one time as a standalone where you can download that. Everything took me to the student program, to this program, the Office thing, and da-da-da-da. So I was talking to a friend of mine who works on websites over in the UK. And he's like, hold on, let me look here. So he found it in the UK and sent me the link, which redirected over to a U.S. site, like not even on their site map, that's in the back somewhere, hidden from the American populace, but accessible in the UK. They're there .uk.com.uk. And I'm thinking, you sneaky littles, I'm trying to buy the software so I can buy it here and just download it on my native device, keep it here. No subscription, and I can't find that in the U.S. But over in the UK, they can instantly find it. Oh, it's right there. And I'm like, dude, it's not right there. I looked for like 15 or 20 minutes, and I do research every day, and I couldn't find it. And then he's like, no, it's right here. And I'm like, no, and boom, it was right there. Unbelievable. But Ransom, I think that's where you're leaving off there, and just how the world's changing. And I was talking about AI mining before. They're going to mine the mineral deposits out of the seabed for rare earth minerals using robots or robotic technologies minus the human. Ransom Godwin and myself, when we go 2 hours at a time, talking about this Revolution Radio Studio A, 10 p.m. to midnight. You can join us on Rumble, where we're streaming live on the Adapt 2030 channel. Please join us over there. Join the conversation. Others in the chat.
so we can all come together with solutions because we're going to need them. Bye for now.